Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carlos Diaz. I am a Splunk analyst with the Splunk practice with Presidio, formerly known as Kinney Group. Welcome to our November Lunch and Learn on Introduction to Regex for Splunk. Um, just so everybody knows, lunch is not provided, but the learning is. Now, we'll dive into this tool. It's made for data manipulation, right? Regex it's for parsing logs, filtering data, or extracting specific information. It's a very powerful skill to have. Now, we're going to start with the fundamentals of Regex. What is Regex? What is the basic syntax of it? No lunch, I'm out. We'll talk a little bit about character classes and quantifiers, the tools that you need to use Regex successfully, right? We'll talk a little bit about Regex in Splunk, the tools that Splunk has available that can be made even more powerful if you apply Regex to them, including we're going to focus on what the Regex command does. We'll talk a little bit about advanced Regex. These are concepts that I think are going to be very useful for you guys. They have to be covered, but we're not going to go too deep into them. And then from there, we'll address any questions that come up in the chat during the presentation. All right, so let's start with, like I said, the fundamental. What is Regex? Regex is a pattern matching language, right? It stands for regular expressions. What it does is it allows you to type out a pattern for the specific string you're looking for. Just like when you go on Google and you type out a word and Google looks for that word specifically, with Regex, you can type out a word or you can type out any combination of characters, whether that's letters, numbers, symbols, whatever it is, based on what you're looking for, right? It's a lot easier to look for any email address with Regex than it would be if you're just Googling email addresses, right? But it is a very extensive subject. There's a lot to it. Today, we're going to cover what's important to make sure that you're powering up your Splunk usage. We're not going to go that deep into what Regex is. We'd be here all day. And we don't want to do that. Now, the purpose of Regex, we use it to filter and process very, very large amounts of data, right? When you have just a lot of events to go through, you can use Regex to narrow those down to the events that include only the stuff that you want to look at, right? It also allows you to extract specific information. If you have events that have email addresses, like I said, you can extract all those events based on a Regex string, right? And you can use it for data validation. So if you're looking for data that includes a specific code, a hash, IP address, you can use Regex to make sure that that is the data that you are getting, right? So let's talk about those fundamentals, that basic syntax of Regex. The first thing is simple. It's just the literal characters, right? If you have just letters, little characters just match exactly what you're typing on that search bar, right? So if you type ABC, you're going to match exactly ABC. You type a certain word, you're going to match exactly what that word is, right? And then with that, you also have meta characters. Those are special symbols. They have a very unique meaning. If I type a dot or a period into my search bar, it's not really going to mean a dot, right? A period will match any single character in a string. So if I type A.C, that will match ABC or AXC, right? Because it'll match any character at all. And we're going to see that in a second. Now, a backslash is one of the main characters to use in Regex. It's going to escape the character that goes with it, right? So, like I said, if I type A.C, it will match any character right there in the middle. But if I accompany that dot with a backslash, what I'm doing is I'm telling Regex, hey, this symbol that I'm going to put right here with you with this backlash, I want you to take it as the other meaning of it, right? So /dot means dot. Regex knows, okay, well, I'm not looking at the unique meaning that this normally tells me. I'm looking at the other meaning. So if it's a meta character you're using, it'll take it as a literal. If it's a literal, it'll take it as a meta character. And I'll show you what that looks like. So I have right here a log file, a CSV file. It's very hard to read. There's a lot to it. And that's what we're going to use regex for, right? Let's start with those literal characters. If I just type out a name, say I type out Michael, it's going to be literal characters. It's going to tell me exactly where in that log file the word Michael is, right? If I type out email address, the email I'm looking at is Stanton Christopher at hotmail.com. Now it's matching the whole thing. Notice how this dot is highlighted here for me because it's taking it as a meta character. It matches because it matches any character. But to show you the difference, if I were to type, for example, email dot, look at the matches that I'm getting. I'm getting email, comma, email, colon, email, colon, email, colon. Why? Because it's a meta character that's telling me match any character that you can find right here in this spot where I'm putting this dot. If I were to put a backslash here, I'm telling regex, well, look for specifically a dot. That's what I want you to look for, just a dot. And there's no matches, right? There's nowhere in this file does it say email dot, right? If I put one of these IP addresses is 242 dot, I'm getting a little match, right? 242 dot. And that's what the backslash is good for, is to escape the character that's going with it. Now, to continue with that basic syntax, the next thing you have is character classes, right? And again, this is where the backlash starts coming in very handy. These letters D, W, and S are normally just little characters. When you accompany them with that backslash, you're telling regex, okay, well, take them as a meta character. Take him as a character class. Now, \D is going to match any digit, 0 through 9. \W is going to match any word character that can be letters, numbers, or an underscore. And \S is going to match any backspace. That can be a space or a tab or a line break. The uppercase version of this is going to match the opposite, right? So \D is going to be any non-digits. \W, any non-word characters. Uppercase S, any non-white space, right? And then you have your quantifiers, which tell you how many of these characters do you want to match if it's more than one of them. So you have star, which matches 0 or more, right? Any amount of them. If there's none, that's fine. If there's a ton of them, that's fine. A plus will match 1 or more. I need to have at least 1. A question mark is going to match 0 or 1, right? It could be there, it could not be, but if there is, it's just one of them. And then if you use curly braces, you can use an exact number, whether that is, match this an exact number of times or a minimum and a maximum, right? So if you put n comma and then nothing, you're telling it, I want this match a minimum of n times, but you can use a maximum as well. N comma m is going to be a minimum of n times, a maximum of m times. This allows you to tell regex, this is the amount of characters that I want in this string. I don't want you to just give me everything. This is the amount that I want. Now, keep in mind that for quantifiers, for the first two, star and the plus sign, those are greedy characters. if I set a star, regex doesn't know if I want 5 or 10. It doesn't know how many I want. It's gonna match as many as possible. Even if that takes me to just the entire file, it's gonna match all of it. So we try to avoid star and the plus sign unless it's absolutely necessary, because it will bog down your regex search, because it's just gonna try to match everything it can. Now let me show you that. We go back to the file here. If I say, for example, any character at all, it matches them all individually, and you can see the difference here. Every single character is matched. If I put a star, it's going to match the entire file in just one match, right? Between 0 and however many you have available. Now, say I'm looking for, say, an IP address, right? I have some IP addresses in this file. Let's do the counters. We do \D for digits, right? And we want just more than one of them. We don't know how many there's going to be. It could be one or more. So we're going to go with the plus sign, right? IP addresses are number dot number dot number. So to put a dot, \dot. Then I go again with \D plus sign, \dot, \D plus sign, \dot, plus sign. So that it's going to match me any IP address that's going to be in that file. Now, like I was saying, that plus sign is going to be a greedy character. It's going to match as many numbers as it possibly can. I don't think I have any example here that goes further than what the IP address is. But it is using a lot more resources than I need to just match that IP address. I know IP addresses are going to be either one number, two numbers, or three, right? So instead of using that plus sign, I'm going to tell regex exactly how many characters I need to match. So between 1 and 3, and I close that curly brace, and I'm still matching that same IP address. I'm still matching all the same IP addresses, but now I'm telling regex exactly how many I want. That way I'm not using any more resources than necessary. Once you start getting into those longer regex strings, then it starts being important how many resources you're using, right? So if I want to look at, say, for example, email addresses, I don't really know what the username is going to be. I don't really know what the domain for the email address is going to be. So let's go with just word characters, and I'm going to go with 0 or more, followed by an @ sign, followed by more word characters, 0 or more, .com. Now I'm matching email addresses. Now, could there be any different ones? It could be. Maybe it's not .com. Maybe it's .co.uk, right? That's when you start playing with that regex string, and you start. There you go. I have an example right here, .org. It was not matched because I said .com. So instead, say I put word character anywhere between 2 and 3. Now this email address is going to match as well, because that domain, I'm covering all my bases here with that regex string, right? Now look, there's another one here that I don't have covered because there's a dash here. Dash is not covered under the word character, right? So say after the word character, I'm going to put any character at all. It could be there, it could not be there. Let's say 0 and 1, right? and then followed by more word characters. Now I'm covering this email address right here that I wasn't covering before. So tools like this are very useful whenever you're working with regex, because you can just start tailoring that regex search string to specifically the data that you want to find, right? Now, on top of that, you can have a character range. A character range will match one of the characters that you're given it inside these square brackets, right? ABC between square brackets is going to match either A, B, or C. When you know what the options are, you just don't know which one it's going to go with. Maybe it's .com, maybe it's .org. You don't really know. So you can use character ranges to cover all those options without necessarily going with something as broad as just a word character, a \W, right? And you can cover ranges as well. So if I go from A to Z, it'll match any character in the alphabet from A to Z, right? And you have anchors. Anchors will help you match something that will be at the beginning of your string or at the end of your string, right? So these are the two symbols, either where it starts or where it ends. If you have a match somewhere in the middle, if you're using one of those anchors, it's not going to pop up in regex. We're looking for something at the very beginning or at the very end. Or you can use \B, which matches a word boundary, right? Meaning if I'm matching any character at all, but I'm using a word boundary, it's only going to match that specific word, right? It's not going to go like we did at the beginning. It's not going to go for the entire file. So let's demonstrate that for a second. So if I'm looking for, let's go back to the example of IP addresses, right? If I'm looking for digits, \D will cover any digits. But if it can be narrowed down, say I want anything between 0 and 5. I don't really want to go as high as a 9, right? Why would I want to do that? Maybe it's just specifically what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for 1 to 3 of them. Say I'm looking for any IP address that starts between 0 and 5. Then 1 or 2 dot digits 1 to 3 digits 1 to 3. There you go. So now the IP addresses that are popping up for me are the ones that are only starting with numbers between 0 and 5, right? So this one starts with a 3, it'll highlight. This one starts with a 2, it'll highlight. This one that starts with a 6 is not highlighting. So I'm giving it a range. This is what I want, somewhere between here and here. You're gonna cover whatever options I'm giving you inside that character range, which can help you, again, narrow down even more those regex strings. All right, so let's talk a little bit about regex in Splunk and its capabilities. Splunk already has a lot of capabilities that allow you to go through data really effectively. If you add regex to it, it's even better, right? So what we're going to focus on today is just event filtering. How do I use regex to filter to my list of events so I can narrow down exactly what I'm looking for? There's a couple of things that you can do additionally to that. You can do field extractions. We're not really going to cover that today. That's going to be on our December Lunch and Learn, right? Or you can clean up data. If you get to that point, you can match a specific string and you can tell Splunk, okay, well, if this matches, go ahead and replace it with something else. It's very useful when you're dealing with financial data, for example. Go ahead and match me all the debit card numbers or credit card numbers, and then obfuscate the last 4 digits. Go ahead and replace them with X's. That way, I'm not saving actual credit card numbers for my customers, right? And you're doing that with Regex. So for what we're covering today, we're going to be focusing on the search functionality of Splunk, and we're going to be filtering those events with the regex command. Now, the way the regex command works is you have the regex command, you tell Splunk which field you're wanting to look into, and then you tell it what specific regex string you're looking for in that field. So if you're looking for phone numbers, names, usernames, email addresses, event IDs, computer names, you can do all of it through those regex strings. So let's look at that. So here I have a search. I performed the search over the past 15 minutes of my data, and I have 5,576 events, right? That's a lot of events to go through if I have to go through them manually. Now, just to pick a field here, let's say I'm looking at IPs. I have 100 plus different client IPs. Say I'm looking for a specific IP range. I'm looking for the IPs that start with 5896. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use my regex command. Regex, I'm looking at the client IP field. And I'm looking for IPs that start with 58. .96 dot, and then it can be any number whatsoever. So I'll say digit, again, like we were doing, between 1 and 3, then another dot, and another digit between 1 and 3. 58, 96, digit, dot, digit. So what am I doing here? I'm bringing down my events to 2,200 events. I cut it in more than half by just putting a simple regex string saying, I'm really only interested in the events that are coming from this specific IP range, right? Anything that starts with 5896. If I go to my client IP field, 5896, 5896, 5896, this is all I'm getting on here. Say that I want to look at, I know there's some email addresses here. If I want to look to see if there's any email addresses on my fields, say I'm looking at the raw field and I'm looking for just any email addresses at all. Actually, say I'm looking for just an @ sign. Is there any @ signs? I'm already bringing that down, even with something as simple as just, are there any @ signs in my fields, so I can see if there's any email addresses. How many different users do I have? What are the usernames that I have? Say I'm looking for any email address. Go with Word. I don't know how many there's going to be, so 1 or more. Look for any character at all. Could be there, could not be there, right? So 0 or 1. And then maybe there's more word characters after that. And then we're going with at a domain one or more .com. Let's see if there's any .com. Well, it's not giving me email address, but it's giving me a .com domain. So this is what's important about narrowing down those regex strings. But I still went down from 5,500 events to 2,800 events. So if I can continue to narrow down my list of events, I can make it much easier for myself and for my CPU to go through the list of events that I have available to find the specific information that I'm looking for. Now, when it comes to advanced regex syntax, there's a couple of things that I do want to cover. First one being capture groups, right? Capture groups, parentheses will actually make a capture group inside of a regex string. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't apply too much to the regex command, but what a capture group does is when you have a long regex string, you're matching an entire email address. But really all you're interested in out of the email address is the username. It's whatever comes before the @ sign, right? So you put that part inside of parentheses and you're telling regex, sure, match all of this, but once you match all of this, this is the only thing that I'm interested in, right? And then the way that Splunk handles capture groups is it will assign a value to it so you can use it on a variable, right? So whenever you're using capture groups as a variable, you are going to make a replacement or a transformation. You use a $sign and the number of the capture group that you have on your string. If you have more than one, it'll assign the numbers in order from left to right. So say $1, we'll use that capture group number 1, right? And inside those parentheses, inside those capture groups, you can actually use an OR operator, right? So if I have ABC pipe DEF, it's going to match either ABC or it's going to match DEF, right? So it allows you to narrow down those search results even further. Again, we're not going to go too deep into these advanced concepts, but I did feel they were worth mentioning because they do make your regex even more powerful. Now, when it comes to regex, it's hard to remember all of it at all times. Even now, sometimes I need help when I'm looking for a specific event. So the tools that you saw that I was using, these are the two of them, regex101.com. If you already have a sample of the data that you're looking for, this is what regex 101 looks like, right? You have your entire test string and you can start typing your regex string here. To give you an idea of what those results are going to look like, to give you an idea of what the string is going to result in from your search, right? It becomes a very valuable tool. Now, regex generator, the other tool that we had on that slide, is an even easier to use tool. Why? Because if I have this data already, and I go to regex generator, what it allows you to do is paste whatever data you're looking through, right? And if I don't want to think about all the possible options when it comes to, for example, an email address, right? I can come in here and say, hey, I want to match this. I want to match an email. And what regex generator is going to do is it's going to give you a string that you don't have to think about yourself. You don't have to come up with yourself from scratch. And it's going to cover as many options as possible that the regex generator can come up with, right? So if I copy this regex and I go into my Splunk search, I should be able to come up with any event that has any sort of email address on that raw data, right? So very useful tool, very helpful tool that will save some of your brain cells when you're trying to come up with a complicated regex string to cover a lot of information. All right, so if you guys have any questions about regex, about the regex command, or about how to use regex in Splunk, feel free to put them in the chat. Not many left, so this is good. Thank you. Regex can definitely be a very extensive subject, but handling the basics can help a lot already. All right. So if we do not have any questions, thank you so much for attending a Lunch and Learn. Earlier this week, I was racking my brain trying to hit on the capture group. Could you do an example of that, please? Capture groups, I can show you what it looks like, but specifically for the regex command, it's not going to do much good. It doesn't apply too much of the regex command. If you have a capture group, let me share my screen here. Absolutely. You guys will all get the link for the recording so you can visit the Lunch and Learn whenever you guys need to. Now, again, the regex command doesn't use capture groups nearly almost at all, but just to show you kind of what that looks like, and this will be talked about probably in our next month's Lunch and Learn, because it's field extractions, right? And that's going to come into play a little more there. So say I'm looking for email addresses with this regex string that I got from regex generator, right? I know that my @ sign is right here. And like I said, I'm looking specifically for just usernames. I'm looking for my usernames. Yes, I need you to match the entire email because I need to know that it is, in fact, an email address with its domain and it's .com or .org. But what I want from that is just the username part, what comes before the @ sign, right? So the way this would normally work, again, outside of the regex command, is once you go into, say, an eval command and you want to create a username field, right? You're going to refer to this as $1, considering it being the first capture group that I'm creating, right? So if I go with eval username equals, this is not going to do anything for this specifically because, again, I'm using the regex command. But if I do evals $1, what I'm doing is I'm replacing the value of that capture group, right? That variable I created, first capture group, I'm replacing it into the username field. I don't want to go too deep into it because, again, it doesn't apply to the regex command, so I don't want to make it confusing. But when you create a capture group, Splunk will automatically give it a variable number, and you can use that number to replace that value whenever you need it later on. It applies more to the rex command, which is, again, field extractions. We'll be talking about that on our Lunch and Learn for the month of December. There should be a link on chat right now for next month's Lunch and Learn. Yes, sir. We got posted there. Field extractions in Splunk. If you still need help with those capture groups, that will apply much more to your question. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of an overview. It won't be too detailed because it doesn't apply to this command specifically. But again, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to email us at support@kinneygroup.com. Yes, you can still email there. Once we have our support Presidio account, those emails will be automatically forwarded, so you don't have to worry about whether we'll get them or not. We will get them, and we'll get you an answer to your questions. And like I said, you will receive that recording. All right, so if we don't have any more questions, I will give you guys a little bit of your afternoon back. Maybe time to get that lunch that you were promised. All righty, I hope you guys have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you so much for coming into our session.